Hello and welcome to week 2 of our Introduction 2020 Faculty Perspective series. We're so glad that you've joined us today. Each week we will present 5 live interdisciplinary faculty perspectives centered around 5 different tracks. Those tracks in order are COVID-19, anti-racism, environmental and climate change, engaged humanities, and finally innovation and entrepreneurship. In a minute, I will turn things over to today's presenter, who will present for about 30 minutes, and then we will answer many of your questions live on camera. If you're a student watching live in Zoom, please use the Q&A feature to ask questions of our presenter. We will also follow up after the program to any questions we don't answer live. At this time, I'm really pleased to introduce you to Mattias Vogel, Senior Instructor of German. Dr. Vogel is also the faculty in residence in the Global Scholars Hall, so many of you will have a chance to see him regularly. Today he's going to present on 2 languages, 2 minds, flexible cognitive processing and UO language study. Welcome, Dr. Vogel. How are you today?
Thank you, Cora. I'm very well. I'm happy to be here, and I hope to see our students that I speak to virtually now very soon in fall term.
We're all really excited about it. I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you. Welcome. I'll give you a brief overview over what I'm going to talk about, introduce myself, and then, as Cora just let you know, we'll take some questions afterwards. So I will tell you a little bit about who I am, where I come from, how I ended up in the field that I currently teach in, and then tell you what you can do with this study if you pursue a language study, in particular German, and then I'll be open for questions. So my talk is entitled 2 Languages, 2 Minds, Flexible Cognitive Processing and UO Language Studies, or What's Elvis Got to Do with It? Every good presentation has to have an Elvis in it, right? So I'm a little bit about myself. I am from Germany. I'm German by birth. I'm from the city of Mainz, which you can see here on the map in southwestern Germany, about an hour and a half from the French border. I was born there and grew up there, so German was my native language. One of the icons of that city, architectural icons you see here, is the Cathedral Mines. Is over 2,000 years old. It is the 2nd oldest city in Germany. The cathedral was built in begun in 975. It is a big tourist magnet, and from when I was a child to when I entered my teenage years to when I started studying at the Johannes Gutenberg Universität in Mainz, I was very much in touch with tourists from all around the world and students from all around the world who came to see this picturesque setting. I included a few pictures for you here. Mainz is in the Rhine Valley, the typical timber frame housing that is so typical for Germany and especially for cities along the Rhine. And then on the lower left of your screen, the colorful houses, that's the market square in the city. Just to give you an idea of where I hail from originally. When I was a teenager, I was moved by probably many of the same questions that you have or might have. And why am I here? Who am I? What is the meaning of life? And I went to school right next to that cathedral that you saw, and thought maybe I'll find some answer in religion, and that's why I included those 2 pictures for you here, of those photographs of an altar in the cathedral in Mainz that highlight the ephemeral nature of our existence here on earth. On the left you see a human still in the flesh, and on the right basically the skeleton. Death is hailing at us from that cup that the skeleton raises. And I thought, well, maybe religion doesn't give me the answer. Maybe science will give me the answer. And so I included this quote from Heisenberg, a German physicist, that says, "The first drink from the beaker of science makes you atheistic, but at the bottom of the cup, God is waiting." Well, God, how do we know the Word of God? I questioned, and then I thought, well, languages. after all, the Bible is supposed to be the Word of God, right? So languages, it was for me, and I started studying languages and literature, and today I coordinate the language program in the Department of German and Scandinavian. I train our TAs how to teach. I make the syllabi and supervise the language classes. So teaching a second language and learning a second language, I have to tell you, when you're at the U of O, you are at a great place for learning languages. What we do here at the university is at the forefront of language teaching and learning in the nation. We are among the top 10 universities to graduate language majors, and we're also among the top 10 in the number of language majors we graduate. But even if you're not majoring in Spanish or German or Chinese, whichever language it is, you should consider learning a language here with us at the U of O. Why? Well, because speaking a second language changes how you see the world. It does so on several different levels. On the one hand, because speaking another, learning and then speaking another language, especially with us, allows you to go abroad. I'll talk a little bit about study abroad in a minute. But learning another language literally allows you to see the world with different eyes, because language structures how we perceive reality. So when you compare English and German, for example, if you ask the question, where did the thief go? You better ask that question in German. But if you want to know how the thief got away, you should switch to English. Why? Speakers of English and of German, they emphasize different things, it turns out. Germans put a different emphasis on actions and their consequences, which influences the way that Germans think about the world. Scientists, linguists have found that English speakers tend to stress the process a little more, and that bilingual speakers are flexible. So learning a language here and learning it well means that you can switch between the different languages. So linguists have shown that there is a difference in how Germans and German speakers, I should say, not Germans, and English speakers treat events. So this is where Elvis comes in, because in English you have a wonderful construction that's called a continuous tense. You can say in English, I was sailing to Bermuda and I met Elvis. And you can say, I sailed to Bermuda and I saw Elvis, or I met Elvis. And you can ponder about what the difference is between those two sentences, and then ask me if you have figured out, or ask me what the difference is in meaning during the Q&A. But German doesn't have that progressive tense. And so what German speakers, it turns out, do is they tend to emphasize the beginnings, the middles, and the ends of events that they are describing. Looking at the same scene, a German speaker might say that somebody is going towards a store, and the German speaker will put an end point to what they see, and an English speaker is likely stressing the process itself. So if you looked at the picture of me on the screen right now, an English speaker would say, Mattias Vogel is speaking, he is talking using the present tense and the continuous tense. And a German speaker might say, Mattias Vogel is talking to deliver information to students. They'll put an end point to it. So if you look at these two pictures, and give you a few seconds to just behold what's going on in those pictures. If you look at the picture on the top and you're an English speaker, you would likely say a man is biking. And if you're a German speaker, you might say a man is biking to his next music gig, or a man is biking to the pawn shop to pawn off his guitar, or anything that comes to mind that is an end point. And the same in the picture down below, you see a man walking across a square. As an English speaker, you would likely say the man is walking, just describing the process using the continuous tense. And as a German speaker, you might say, this man has just wrapped up his lunch meeting. He is now walking back to his office. And the presentation is stuck, so we'll use a different clicker. That difference between how the German speakers and the English speakers approach these events implies that German speakers are more likely to focus on possible outcomes of people's actions, and that English speakers just tend to pay more attention to the process itself. And bilingual speakers in experiments have shown that when test subjects are cued in English and then asked to describe the same pictures, they will tend to describe the process. If they're cued in German, they will tend to focus on an end point of this. And this happened with about 70% likelihood every single time. So what does that mean for you as a student at the U of O? It suggests that a second language can play an important unconscious role in framing our perception and framing your perception. So by having another language, you literally, by being able to think in another language and speak in another language, you are literally able to have an alternative vision of the world. You can compare it to listening to music just from one speaker, or listening to music in stereo. It's the same with language. And so the question that I posed earlier, why should you learn a language? Because it enriches you, it offers different perspectives. It does so on a grammatical level that we are often not even aware of. But there are other reasons for why you should study a language while you're at the U of O, and I will now play a video to drive that point home. Not personally, but we had an event that the UO Language Council put on. UO Board of Trustees members joined, professionals and UO alumni, and listened to what they have to say about why we all need to study more languages.
The UO Language Council, in partnership with the Alumni Association, hosted an experts roundtable with 8 prominent UO alumni, including keynote speaker and incoming trustee board member, Jim Shepard.
Today, I feel truly privileged to be here to talk about something that I believe strongly in and that profoundly changed my life: foreign languages and cross-cultural experiences. We live in a rapidly changing and shrinking world. Globalization is the new norm.
The group discussed such topics as applying for jobs, becoming a better communicator, and adapting to our globalized world.
When I'm looking at the business world that I live in, and the way Jim was describing, I think was appropriate. When I'm looking at hiring people, when I'm looking at what are the most important skills, far and away, I'm not looking for anybody who learned all about finance in a business school. I can teach them all the technical stuff. What I need is a communicator.
My view is that if you are at the university and you don't take the time in this day and age to study a language, you are wasting your time.
Panelists stated that learning a second language also helps students become better communicators in their native language.
People around the world, whatever their ethnic groups, whatever their nationalities, have really vastly different points of view and vastly different worldviews. You're not only interacting with people in a foreign language, you're using the foreign language to learn about someone else's worldview. And you can't learn about their worldview if you're doing things through a translator, or you're speaking their language really badly, or you're counting on them to speak your language either well or badly.
In the world where I've worked for the last 30 years, and I would describe that as sort of global law, finance, capital markets, whatever you want to call it, people that speak foreign languages don't make more. They're the only ones that get the job. I've hired hundreds of people over the last 30 years. I cannot think of a single example where the individual that I hired was not multicultural, multilingual. In summary, I strongly recommend you to learn a language and study abroad, because it's all about becoming an interesting and passionate person. And the good jobs of the future will go to the interesting and passionate people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
So as you heard our then Board of Trustee Chair tell us, learning a language doesn't only lead to higher income, but it also can decide whether you get the job or not. So that is the last of the bullet points. It increases your job chances, but a theme that we have heard all of the presenters talking about in the short video is you become a better communicator, you learn about the world and expand your own world, you become a global citizen, and you become an interesting person. Some of my interesting persons, my ex-students, I brought you two cases of two of my students, former students. Adrienne Young, she graduated with a BA in German in 2015. She became a tour leader in an internship that we arranged for her with American, an adventure tour guide through that leads international tourists through the United States. She used her language skills there very prominently. She had to communicate with them in German. And she is now manager at the Goldener Hirsch Resort in Colorado. But not to underplay the significant income differential with languages, since you are not known to me at the other end of this camera or of our channels here, I don't know what you're studying, but I have included here what might be your major. But regardless of your major, I have included for you here a small chart that shows you the accumulated language bonuses across your professional career. This one is from The Economist, Business Insider, Kiplinger's, all have, and Forbes all have similar statistics to show that while you're at college, you need to learn a language, because in German, for example, you make $125,000 more, and in French still 75, and in Spanish 50, and that is of course compared to those of your colleagues who are not learning any foreign language at all. But it is fun to study a language, not just in the classroom, but because you can go abroad. The U of O is a leader, a national leader in studying abroad. We have Global Education Oregon, GEO, and hopefully we can soon send our students again into any of the 250 programs in over 90 countries where we offer study abroad. Our students who go to Berlin, we have a program with GEO in Berlin, can experience this. This is experiential learning that is unique. You see the Brandenburg Gate, you see the Museumsinsel, and you see the Oberbaumbrücke that our students get to experience. You see the German Parliament, the Reichstag, and just to drive the point home about experiential learning that we're offering while you're there, look at the roof of the Reichstag, of the German Parliament building, and you see that little dome there, what looks like a little dome? That is a glass dome that was added. And I can tell you in this video here that this glass dome was added to make a point, to drive the point home that government should be transparent and that the people have a right to know what government is up to. This comes out of the German history, of course, with the experience of the Second World War, the Nazis, and the Holocaust. And so the United Germany in 1990 put this glass dome on top of the parliament. And it is certainly impressive to see in a picture, but it is even more impressive when you are there and you are looking down because you're taking classes with us at the Freie Universität Berlin. One of my students who has done that, even though he went to an exchange with the city of Freiburg in the south, is Kermis Rudisell. And I asked him to summarize for me some of the most important aspects for him of studying abroad. And he says, it is very important to reflect upon things from your past from an entirely new perspective. And learning another language and being physically abroad has allowed him to do that. And by the way, having fun, as you can see here, with the images he included for me for this presentation. Many majors at the U of O require the study of language. I've included a slide here for you from art history to cinema studies to folklore, history, general humanities, medieval studies, Russian and East European studies, etc. So all of these majors encourage you and require you to study a language. Here's a selection of the languages we offer. Anything from ASL, which is American Sign Language, to Chinese, French, German, Greek, Italian, Japanese. If we don't have a department that teaches this language that you are wanting to study, then we have the Yamada Language Center, which is a great resource on campus and which also offers self-study languages. Of course, I would like you to take German. And in preparation for fall, I have devised several different formats. We have traditional face-to-face meetings. The numbers that you see on the left or that you see to the left of the face-to-face or hybrid are the CRN numbers. So we have traditional face-to-face meetings, hybrid classes which meet 3 times a week and 2 times in person and 2 times online, and then we have completely web-based classes as well. And hopefully I'll see you in some of these because taking a language class is fun. And you can see that here. You can see yours truly in front of a class, and then you see a picture with one of my classes from last year in the classroom. But language learning is not at the U of O is not limited to the classroom. We have many extracurricular activities, such as here you see the German Club, and you see us in front of the Global Scholars Hall for a German Club meeting. Speaking of the Global Scholars Hall, I am the faculty in residence there, which means I live there. And regardless of which format we all will find ourselves in, you will see me there at the hall, because I have an apartment in there, and I have many intentional encounters with students in the Learning Commons. If somebody needs help with paper writing or has a question about registration or anything that might come up, from also missing home to academics. But part of my role there at the Global Scholars Hall is I direct the Global Engagement Academic Residential Community. An academic residential community is a group of students that come together. They're like-minded students. They study similar topics. In this global engagement community, we study issues of global reach and local consequence. We come together in a class. We all live together. The Global Engagement Academic Residential Community, the GEARC, they live above my apartment in one of the towers of the Global Scholars Hall. And so we are a tight-knit community. And by the end of the first academic year, this community has completed their research projects, and they present live at the undergraduate research symposium, where they showcase their work during their first year at the U of O. I also teach a FIG. What is a FIG? It's a freshman interest group. It's called Radicals and Reformers. Why? Because it bridges two classes, one that is a reacting to the past class, where students reenact a historical situation, in this case the salons of the 1920s Greenwich Village, and that is paired with a German class on sexuality. Why do we offer FIGs? Because in a freshman class of 4,000 to 5,000, we have devised strategies to create smaller cohorts so that students don't feel anonymous and blend into the woodwork, but so that they can get all the attention they need. All the FIG students are taking those two classes together, so you have a guaranteed cohort for your first term. And my FIG assistant and I will help you navigate your first term here with us. A few more suggestions I will close with about college success. And some of them might seem obvious, but they need to be stated every year again. And at the top of the list, seek out your professors or your instructors. Everybody is approachable. If we weren't on the internet, I would have given you my cell phone number. I do that with my students in my classes. We just boil with water as well as instructors and professors. So don't be afraid to speak up. Come to office hours, introduce yourselves so that we also know to put a face with your name. Another one is be on time. Whether that be a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting, just be on time. Check into Canvas every day. Our Canvas is a learning management platform. Some of you might have used Canvas at high school, others might have used Blackboard or Moodle. It is very important. There's super important information that your instructors are communicating via Canvas. Communicate politely. That is also important to address instructors and professors politely. Don't be afraid of addressing them, but address them politely. When I give out my cell phone numbers, I don't react to texts that say, hey, what was the homework today? I teach several classes. I don't know who's texting me. I don't keep tab of my students' phone numbers. But if I get a text that says, hello, this is Matthias. I'm in your German 101 class. I need help with the dative. I'd be happy to help you. And be proactive. Don't wait until the last minute until an assignment is due. It might seem, at least at the beginning of fall term, as if, yes, this is a continuation of high school, this is easy. And then once midterm time comes around, a lot of students start noticing that things are on a little bit higher level here, and then they're overwhelmed. So be proactive, get your readings done. And the last one that I want to tell you is be independent and respectful. I respect my students, and I respect them even more if they have an independent mind and don't agree with everything I say, but question what I have to say. That is what I'm hoping to train you to do, to be able to critically question by giving you perspectives through different languages, through German literature. I also teach some language and culture classes, so I hope to see you in one of them. If you have any questions, please feel free to either ask these questions now for our Q&A or send questions to my email address, mattvogel@uoregon.edu, and I would be happy to answer you directly in case you aren't heard today. So thank you for listening, and I hope to see many of you in fall.
Thank you so much. We do have time for some questions, and I've been watching here on my phone, so I've got some already in the pipeline for you, Matthias, and so we will go ahead and get those. Let's start with Madison's question. This question came in before you started talking about the Yamada Language Center, but Madison is interested in learning a little bit more about how to access the Yamada Language Center for studying non-traditional languages, and it seems like they're interested in really pursuing that as an opportunity for language study. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thank you, Madison, for asking that question. The Yamada Language Center is physically, it's located in Mackenzie Hall. Has a wonderful office space that is also a space that can be used for studying. So you could physically go there and speak to any of the clerks there or student workers there. And then the Yamada Language Center also has a self-study program where you can study languages that are less commonly taught. You can study there, for example, Dutch is one of the languages that comes to mind. You can you can do that by getting in touch directly with the Yamada Language Center. Turkish is another language that comes to mind, and there are instructors who will guide you through this self-study. All you have to do is reach out to them. They also have a virtual language lab, which is wonderful. The email address is Babel, like the Tower of Babel, babel.uoregon.edu. You can access that now, even after our presentation, and just look around. We have films in different languages digitized there, resources for classes, etc. So you can either go physically there, move there, or you can access it through the computer in a virtual space.
Thank you for that. I'm maybe going to be butchering this name, and I'm sorry. Arista wants to know, what is the best way to learn a language efficiently and grasping it without forgetting what I've learned?
Very good question. I'll give you, I don't know which language you have learned maybe or started to learn in high school. Language learning is a lifelong process. It doesn't stop. You have to, we all have to, I have to review for example, my French. I have to do that continuously because I'll give you the German saying for that. In German you say, wer rastet, der rostet. And that means they who rest, rust. So if you don't use your language, it will get rusty. So the most efficient, the best way to retain what you have learned is just to join any of our, for example, our UO language roundtables, to take maybe a class in German, in Spanish, in French, that is a class that is taught in that language, or to join the diverse clubs. Netflix has some films and movies in foreign languages, so you have many different ways. So.
Well, and certainly study abroad is an immersive way to retain that information. And actually, one of our students wants to know what's the best time in their time at the U of O. What year might be the best time for students to study abroad? Do you have any advice on that?
That really depends on your individual context and situation. Some students from my global engagement arc went after their first year. We have programs where you can go in your first year or after your first year. So if you were a student of German, for example, we have a spring intensive program, which means you take first and second term here. So fall and winter term here, and then for spring and summer you go abroad to Germany. For any of those intensive language programs, students who do that, usually they skip over 1 year of language instruction because being immersed in the language is gives you so much of a boost. For other students, you go after your second year, it depends on, as I said, on your context. It depends on your goals. It depends on whether you want to learn language while you're abroad or whether you want to take seminars that will count towards your major while you're abroad. In that case, depending on your proficiency, you might go maybe after the second or even after the third year.
Thank you. Zach wants to know, is there a class based on this talk? This topic is really interesting to me, and I'd like to know how different cultures think about the world.
There's not necessarily a class that I'm aware of on specifically the topic of my talk, but you will, when you enroll in the different language classes, and as I said, language learning is a lifelong process, and we encourage you not just to learn one language, but to learn several languages. So as you enroll in the different language classes, you will grasp the differences in approach from all of these different languages.
Well, speaking of learning a lot of languages, Kaz wants to know, is there a limit to the number of languages you can take?
Kaz, you should enroll in a class with me. No, there's not a limit. The only limit that you face is basically however many classes you can take, however many classes is advisable to take, yeah. And then of course considering general progress towards your major and towards your degree. So that would somewhat limit it. But no, you can take as many languages as you want.
Well, and they can study a specific language, or they can study something more broad, like linguistics or something else?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, another question that came in. Outside of the mental benefits discussed earlier, would you consider these languages especially helpful for a student interested in other majors?
I would. As I mentioned, so there are some very concrete and practical benefits. For example, if you were a business major or coming in with the idea of becoming a business major, you should know that we have certificates, global business certificates, with tracks for German, Spanish, and Italian. And that for these certificates, they're not necessarily added work or added classes, but these certificates allow you to combine certain classes that you have to take if you're a business student, such as Intro to Business, Business 101, and some communication classes in the business school, with core education classes, such as a class that I teach on either multicultural Germany or a class on the Holocaust. As you learn about the cultures in the different countries, of whichever language you're studying. So these certificates allow you to put these classes together. You do add 1 year of language, 1 year plus 1 term, which can be your study abroad term. If you're learning how to be a marketer in the wine business, for example, you can study that in Italy. You take 1 year of language, and then you go to Italy for that 1 term of 2nd year. You put that together, and you have this additional qualification that sets you apart, not just from students here locally, but that set you abroad from students nationwide. So it's absolutely an added qualification. If you are going into psychology and you want to research or history, and you want to research, for example, adding other languages in your field is very, very important. So you can also do research in these fields and actually read original research. Just like I said in the talk, you don't always want to have everything translated for you. You want to read it in the original, so you understand what the research article that you're reading really is about.
Thank you. Emily wants to know, is a foreign language class required at the U of O, and does ASL count for that American Sign Language? If you're not familiar with the answer, I can certainly answer it, but I'm going to toss it to you first to see what you can do with that question.
So ASL does count, and a foreign language is required if you are studying if you're majoring in any of the disciplines that I listed earlier, and if you are studying for a Bachelor of Arts. If you are not studying for a Bachelor of Arts, if you're striving for a Bachelor of Science, you do not have a 2-year language requirement. You have a math requirement, but you can take your study of language and count that towards the arts and letters requirement that you have to fulfill as part of your core ed. So.
Perfect, you got it right. Sagan wants to know, are there places at the UO to practice foreign languages that you aren't taking as a class?
Yes, we have the Mills International Center that is organized through Global Education Oregon. It is in the EMU, the Urban Memorial Union, the student union building. Every Monday, for example, for 2 hours, there are roundtables where students speaking Russian, speaking German, speaking Mandarin, Japanese, French, Spanish, all of the languages that I listed that you can study with us, where they meet and discuss in the target language. We also have, for German at least, I can tell you, I know the French do as well, what's called a regulars table that meets at one of the local famous pizza places here in town, right next to Matthew Knight Arena. So you can join them. It's 7 o'clock every Tuesday evening, for example. We have language resources in terms of films that you can watch online in whichever language, through the Knight Library and through the Yamada Language Center. And then the Yamada Language Center itself has also computers that you can use to practice language, and workstations that you can use. Not so much anymore like the language lab of old, where we sat there with our big headphones and repeating drills one after the other. No, not like that. But much different, and a lot of it has moved online to the virtual language lab.
Fantastic. Okay, so I want this is a great question from Sophia, who has done some language study in high school. And Sophia wants to know, how do our language classes differ from a typical high school language class?
So Sophia, congratulations for taking some language in high school. Language classes here at the U of O are different in a few ways from the high school class that you are that you're used to. So for one, on the one hand, language study at the U of O here is much more intense. So we convert about 2 years of high school study to about 1 year of college study. So if you've taken 2 years in your high school, that means you would probably start in second year, at least for any of the European languages. For the Asian and Pacific languages, it's a little different. But there are placement tests offered through the UO Testing Center that you can take, and for the Asian languages, the East Asian Languages and Literature departments takes care of the placement directly themselves. So on the one hand, it's more intense. On the other hand, our languages here are very communicative. They're trying to teach you language that you can actually use, and try to get you to a language level that is nationwide, a proficiency level that is recognized nationwide, and that includes the teaching of history and of culture. That includes maybe attending cultural events in the community here. That includes lift classes, meaning that you take a content class and you have a language component to it. So we have many different many ways in which a language class here is different from the high school class that you're used to.
Perfect, thank you. That's all the time that we have this afternoon. Students, please be sure that you complete the tutorial, the reflection in the community.uoregon.edu course. That's just like Canvas, as Matthias mentioned, the learning module that many of our faculty members use. We want to make sure that we record your participation in today's program through that. Also, if you have additional questions about this program or anything else related to introduction, you can visit our website at orientation.uoregon.edu. You can also email us at orientation@uoregon.edu or text us at 541-346-1159. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and Matthias, thank you so much for your time today talking with our new students and answering their questions. I'm sure they're all looking forward to getting to see you this fall.
Thank you, Cora, and go Ducks.
Perfect, go Ducks.